recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chopra. So, you know, I talk to a lot of banks, small banks, under $1 billion, $5 billion, regionals, super regionals, throughout Pennsylvania, the big guys on Wall Street. And they're really not happy with your agency. So let's just start there. I mean, across the board. I mean, the largest banks, down to the smallest, have many concerns. So, you know, the idea that the CFPB is doing a great job is foreign to me, okay? Because every single bank I talk to, I'm not talking about, you know, 3 out of 5. It's like 19 out of 20. So I assume you got some sort of reviews taking place, taking information in on your final rules and be responsive to the clientele that you're supposed to be helping.
Just to be clear, the clientele of the CFPB is not banks. The clientele is the public. And often, it is true, there will be differences with entities that we
Who serves the public?
Supervise.
Do the banks serve the public?
Of course, they have important public
So
matter.
they're a link in the chain.
Of course, and we want those who follow the law to be able to not get a disadvantage by those who don't. And I hear your concerns, but at the end of the day, we have to make sure that our consumer protection objective.
You're going too far. Now let's even talk about the 1071 that keeps coming up. Okay, how somehow that's wonderful. Okay, I had a small business committee hearing the other day, and we had 4 Republican and Democrat witnesses, and they all thought it was terrible, that the type of questions that needed to be answered. Now, I know in the final rule you retracted some of the insane information that you wanted to derive, not making it required. But you're asking banks to ask really personal information on people's race, on their sexual preferences. I mean, where does that fit into looking out for the public good?
So that's a statutory directive. So we were under a court order to implement Section 1071 of the Dodd-Frank Act. It requires collection of information on race and other categories. Again, I appreciate that those are types of questions that sometimes are difficult. We try to work with the industry to figure out what's the best way to limit some of that.
If you actually would do that, work with the industry to figure out the best way to provide guidance and oversight so as they can handle and serve their customers best. But honestly, it doesn't sound as if you're doing that. I was in the business world, okay? The more you talk to your customers, the better of a company you become. Now, you know, so that's on 1071, but there's also 13 data points. Statute requires the collection reporting 13 data points, while the rule requires 81. So there's a lot of concern from banks, small banks, primarily community.
Let me just make clear, there's not 81 data points. There's a difference between data fields. So what we're trying to do is create a
I'm going to reclaim my time. No. If it's not 81, then is it 50?
No, I believe it's about 19, 20, something around.
All right, then perhaps I stand corrected. That's the information I have. Let me ask you about screen scraping. All right, it should be addressed in 1033 rulemaking. Fraud is a serious problem, as we all know. Is this something that, can you update the CFPB's approach to screen scraping? And can 1033 rulemaking address this practice?
Yeah, I actually think we can. I think we can set the stage for making sure screen scraping is not going to be part of our financial infrastructure in the future. I think it's a place we should all talk about, because I do think that screen scraping is not really a viable long-term way for data sharing.
Great. Very happy to hear that. And I'm just going to go back to 1071 really quickly. If you all could just do some sort of analysis on the compliance costs, primarily for small banks, because that's where they amount and they're more of a percentage of their operating costs. If you all could do that, and maybe we could talk about that, I'd appreciate it.
I'm happy to talk to you about it, including where we've created some changes and hurdles. But yes, let's talk about it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.